had some relationship with Kṛṣṇa because these symptoms developed when he heard that Kṛṣṇa had already killed Kṛṣṇa. Srila Rupa Goswami remarks that there is also transcendental excellence in this kind of symptom. Why is that? Any idea? Hmm? Pick up the microphone.
It's in relation to Kṛṣṇa.
Yeah, even if someone is in a state of fear that Kṛṣṇa is going to, Kṛṣṇa killed Kṛṣṇa, now he's going to come and kill me. See? Then still he's going to be thinking of Kṛṣṇa night and day, constantly, even though the motivation or the mood is fear. So this is, of course, not a very pure or advanced relationship with Kṛṣṇa, but it's still relationship with Kṛṣṇa, so there is some transcendental value in it. And we generally see that the demons that are killed by Kṛṣṇa, then they get liberated and they go to the Brahman. Okay. Disease. What's that? Oh, child. When Kṛṣṇa was absent from Vrindavan and was staying at Mathura, some of his friends informed him, "Dear Kṛṣṇa, because of their separation from you, the inhabitants of Braja are so afflicted that they appear to be diseased. Their bodies are feverish and they cannot move properly. They are simply lying down on the ground and breathing heavily." In the 10th canto, 12th chapter, verse 44 of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Maharaj Parikshit asked about Lord Ananta. And upon hearing this question, Shukadeva Goswami began to show symptoms of collapsing. Yet he checked himself and answered King Parikshit's question in a mild voice. This collapsing condition is described as a feverish state resulting from ecstatic pleasure. Shukadeva Goswami was extremely ecstatic. Some people say, well, the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam doesn't actually mention Radharani by name. You know, and they criticize that. Well, if Srimati Radharani was actually there in Vrindavan, then the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam should mention her. But it doesn't. So she's just mentioned indirectly, like one gopi. For example, in the description of the rasa dance, when Kṛṣṇa was dancing with all the gopis and then suddenly disappeared, the gopis talk among themselves and they say, Kṛṣṇa has left the rasa dance with one gopi. But they don't mention the name. Or Shukadeva doesn't mention. And the reason for this was that if Shukadeva mentioned the name of Srimati Radharani, he would go into an ecstatic trance that could last for days. And they were under time pressure because Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die in 7 days. So he had to finish giving all these instructions in 7 days. He didn't have time to go into an ecstatic trance, you know, and then they would have to revive him and it would take so long and like that. So he avoided mentioning so many things. But at times when Maharaj Parikshit would ask a question that touched on some of his ecstatic emotions, he would Lord Ananta. You know, this was his ecstatic nature. Oh, yeah. There is another statement in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam telling of the damsels of Braja meeting Kṛṣṇa at the sacred place of Kurukshetra many years after their childhood pastimes. When they met in that sacred place, all the gopis became stunned by the occurrence of a solar eclipse. Their breathing, blinking of the eyes, and all similar activities stopped, and they stood before Kṛṣṇa just like statues. This is another instance of a diseased condition resulting from exuberant transcendental pleasure. Oh, this is such a heavy story. Whew. You know, Kṛṣṇa lived in Vrindavan for the first 16 years of his appearance. And then he left, and he had all these adventures in Mathura and Dvarka for a long time. Actually, for 108 years. So the residents of Vrindavan were separated from Kṛṣṇa for 108 years. And then, after the Battle of Kurukshetra, a great sacrifice was held on the battlefield itself. Well, actually, before Kurukshetra was a battlefield, it was a sacrificial arena. The name Kuru, Kshetra, means that it was the sacrificial arena of the Kuru kings, the Kuru dynasty. So the residents of Vrindavan, because they were members of the Kuru dynasty, they went also, along with all the Kuru kings and many of their subjects and so on, to Kurukshetra on the occasion of this solar eclipse. So what happened was that while the sacrifice was, being performed, because during the solar eclipse, the priests and their all the people would bathe in a sacred place while chanting mantras during the solar eclipse, because the Vedic explanation of what a solar eclipse is that when the sun gets eaten by Rahu. See, Rahu is the south node. No, is it south? No, the north node of the moon. When the moon crosses the celestial equator in the direction from south to north, that's Rahu. And when the orbit of the moon crosses the celestial equator from north to south, that's Ketu. These are also called the ascending node and the descending node. So these two planets, Rahu and Ketu, are shadow planets. One is the shadow of the moon that causes a solar eclipse, and the other one is the shadow of the earth that causes a lunar eclipse. With me so far? Okay. So at that time, then all the members of the Yadu dynasty and the remaining Kurus, they all went to Kurukshetra, and of course Kṛṣṇa also went. So the residents of Vrindavan got to meet Kṛṣṇa after 108 years of separation. And so there was this incredibly ecstatic scene where Kṛṣṇa met Radharani and the gopis again after, and his mother and father and all the residents of Vrindavan, but especially the gopis, after 108 years. And of course, Kṛṣṇa came just at the moment of the solar eclipse. I mean, who can imagine this? I mean, it was like so ecstatic, so incredibly heavy and intense. And this is when Radharani spoke the famous verse about black moonlight and all this. I mean, you just have to read it. If I try to describe it, I might go into an ecstatic trance. So we have to finish the broadcast. It would be kind of dull to just, watch me just sitting here, going out of my mind. But anyway, the devotees should understand all these things, because this is Kṛṣṇa. This is Kṛṣṇa's character. He likes to create these intense, dramatic scenes that build up over a long period of time, and then suddenly there's this incredibly dramatic resolution. And at this time, the most intense emotions are generated in his devotees, and he enjoys this. This is Kṛṣṇa's play with his devotees, because his actions serve to increase the intensity of their love for him. This is Kṛṣṇa's business. He likes to increase the intensity of his devotees' love. And so he does all these dramas. Prabhupada was also very expert at this. Prabhupada would do these pastimes, like he would say, I'm coming to this temple. And everybody would go crazy, like painting, cleaning, decorating, making everything first class for Srila Prabhupada. And then at the last minute, he would delay his trip, or he would go someplace else. And then the president would have to go to that place and say, but Prabhupada, you promised to come and visit us, and we're all ready, and everything like that. And then Prabhupada would say, okay, I'm coming. And so then they would go back, and they would get everything ready again. And then Prabhupada would delay again. You know, and, they would just go crazy. So, you know, Prabhupada knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't that he was absent-minded or something like this. No, he was playing with his devotees to increase their love. You know, some of these traits of Kṛṣṇa kind of rub off on his devotees.